Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Sunday, December 12, 2021, Global Technopolitics Forum's Research Team meeting. So I hope you had a good week. And we have been busy working on China paper that I think most of you are aware of. The first key sections to it, its capacity, which Talia is working on, its influence, which Greg is working on. The other section is intentions that me and Greg have worked on it. And finally, we have the stability. So once we finish the paper, I will share it with everyone and everyone's input will welcome there. The next issue we have is Puran has sent paper. Thank you very much, Puran. I didn't have time to read it in detail. I skimmed through it, but I think it would be good if you want to explain to everybody what it is about.
Thank you very much indeed. This paper, Pari, is about climate negotiations which happened, and they led from G20 meeting, which happened in Rome, and then they went to Glasgow. And it was all about climate diplomacy and combining the power of digital innovations in reshaping our societies in a resilient way. And then I talk about how could the two things combine together, which is both the climate diplomacy on the one hand, which is by and large bilateral stroke multilateral, in context of the new environmental governance landscape which is being talked about, and how will that really combine pretty well with ongoing digital innovations which are happening primarily at the doorsteps of the businesses, and how the two things will go on to combine together in an arrow which would shape resilient society as a sign of shared prosperity for 21st century. So I gave a lot of background, both on what really happened in Rome and what happened in Glasgow. Then I come out and give a little bit of background of the role of business in society, which has been an ongoing debate around the world, but that is getting reshaped in a way that we could really see what could be the role of business in being able to address the concerns of the society in a larger framework. And then I go and talk about wealth and power of wealth and equity. Then I come to sustainable development goals. And then I come to really talk a bit about case studies, which are both from Global South and also globally. And then I go further down and try and prove a point that, look, all these things are pretty fine, and we should therefore not get really confined to what happened in Rome or what happened in Glasgow, but we really need to go beyond it so that we could probably together, with the help and support of multilateral institutions, the governments, and the businesses, try and combine their energies together in order to foray into shared prosperity model for the world at large. So this in brief is a kind of narrative which I've been trying to weave into the paper which I have sent to you. Yeah.
I'll look forward to it. Well, I haven't had a chance to look at it either, but I'll read it with interest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Puran, one question I have. Is this article published anywhere before, or is it a new article you're giving us?
I have sent it to you. You could probably have a look at it. So I've not really given this paper to anybody.
Okay. So I think this paper, I looked at it, I skimmed through it. It's quite comprehensive and interesting. We could turn it to a white paper, I think. But to do that, I need better resources, better references, because I went through it. I know at the end you put all the references, but quotations and some of the comments are not well referenced from what I saw. Maybe I didn't see it properly, but am I right on saying that?
what I've done there, Puri, is a standard practice. In the first section, I've tried to give some reading material, which is a standard thing which sort of happens. And then I've tried to give, you are right, I have only tried to give the references in a way that it captures, it has not really put the reference up in the content and then tried to tally it with what is given down, but I'll be happy to have a look at it and revise it. I'll be happy to do it.
Thank you, because that would really improve the paper tremendously, especially if I will send you the style we use, because as I said, it could be quite a good white paper and work as a reference paper. Any comment from anybody? Firuze, any comment?
No comments from me.
Paul?
No, I haven't looked at the paper yet, but after the call or sometime over the next day or two, I'll do that.
Okay. And Greg, you haven't seen it as well, and James hasn't seen it. James, any comment? No. Okay, so in this case, I think I want to ask Firuze. Firuze has been going around the world. Last week, we didn't have time to discuss it, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about what is happening in your...
No, I was just gallivanting around the world is exactly what happened. So I was a lot in Europe, and then a trip came up for Africa, and anything Africa oriented, I jumped on it. And Namibia was one of those countries I'd been wanting to see for a very, very long time. So this thing happened exactly at the right moment, and there was a group from Portugal. And so we had two 4x4 cars, like off-roading, and we went all around the country. It's maybe 3,600 kilometers we put on the odometer. Went all the way to the Angolan border. Saw it's a beautiful, very, very interesting country. Empty though. If you look at it, it's so enormous, but it's only like 3 million people. Everybody kept saying, well, where are the people? Where are the people? The landscape is so interesting. At times it feels like you're on a different planet, like a moon landing or Mars landing or something like that. And some films have actually been shot there because it's such an interesting terrain. Very little water, and in the past 10 years, the rain has subsided so much. You see, of all the places that we drove, we saw mostly like dry land. We didn't see a patch at all under agriculture, and people. It's a herding country, so mostly pastoralists. So it forces the herders to leave for days on at a time with their cattle to look for water for grazing land. In fact, we visited a Himba village up the Angolan border, and the men in that village had gone already, and for a while, so nobody knew when they were going to come back. So it is, you see the effects of climate change, I have to say.
What about COVID? What about COVID's effect?
COVID, it's incredible how this thing has penetrated everywhere. In fact, the local market in this remote area where tribes also come to shop. I mean, talking about tribes who still live as they lived centuries ago. Top is naked, beaded around them, mud in their hair because they interweave the Himba interweave their hair with mud, but yet with masks. So it's interesting how like that awareness and that has touched everyone. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful.
It's good to have you back.
Good to be back.
So James, maybe you want to give us a report on what you have been doing and where are you now?
Absolutely. So I've definitely been very deep into the cryptocurrency world universe. I've gone to multiple conferences. Like I was telling Greg, I just came back from Puerto Rico Blockchain Week with some very interesting conversations. As far as my the research paper I was working on, in one sense, I'd say at this point it might be slightly outdated. It still has value, but the main point was that there should be regulation in the crypto industry, and I think that that's becoming fairly obvious. That being said, I might also like to transition to writing more articles. There's a lot of interesting new growth in terms of like telecommunications as well, and how that industry will be changed through crypto lobbying, and then just in general, a lot of other avenues that the whole industry has been moving towards, and been very interested to be on the cutting edge of it.
Sounds very
That's-
good.
So your focus is mostly on crypto, or it's
Yeah,
just on crypto, right?
yes. Well,
Yeah, because-
everything that encompasses that, and crypto is starting to move into a lot of different areas.
Because I'm working on a blockchain and its impact on DNS and the way it will impact ICANN. You're not on that space, are you? You have no.
No, I'm not too familiar with that.
Okay, it's all right. Any comment from anybody?
Yeah, I've got a question. I don't know if it falls into your bailiwick, James, or what you were looking at, but where do things stand at this point with the classification of cryptocurrency? Because there seems to be a lot of debate about whether it should be, at least in the U.S., as a security or a commodity, and I wasn't quite sure how far that had gone, and also what your take on NFTs was, and how the application of NFTs has evolved, and what kind of future that what the future for that might look like.
Sure. So actually, I remember having this conversation a few years ago at a LA conference, and the big thing then is packed with lawyers was security versus utility. And so the cat's still not out of the bag. I think regulators, different agencies have classified it as different things, and they still don't know. We're still, some treat it as property. So currently Bitcoin is treated as property. I think they're treating Ethereum like property, but if you were to try and recreate Ethereum now, they would consider it illegal and not allowed to. So a lot of exceptions. The big divergence is security versus utility. Does the token provide a function, and is it used as a functional purpose, not as a speculative asset? And I think that's what the industry is trying to create, some form of understanding that there's a difference between the two, but oftentimes a token can work as both. So that's they're still working on that, but I definitely know that Bitcoin and Ethereum are property. All the other ones are either security or utility, but oftentimes if it's trading, the SEC is going to consider that a security token. As far as NFTs go, if you have a comment, feel free.
No, I was just wondering, I mean, so if that's the case, if only those two that you mentioned are considered property, I think you were saying, and classified as that kind of asset. So the other ones then, if they're being classified as securities, then I would assume that has a pretty big impact on their business models, right? Because the conditions are much more onerous on a variety of different levels, but most importantly, taxes, so that, and how they're traded. So I would assume that then would, have some pretty big influence on whether these actually have any potential or not.
Oh, many of them have potential, and a lot of them, if they're not trading on an exchange, they'll trade on a decentralized exchange, which the regulators aren't even they're not even they don't even understand that service, let alone scratching that level. But as far as, because oftentimes all of them aren't companies, they're actually DAOs, decentralized organizations, that then produce these tokens, and whoever is a token holder is also, in one sense, a shareholder, a stakeholder within that organization. A good example of a DAO now is a token called Lobby Token. And effectively, if you own this token, you're able to write a proposal or different amendments or even activities that should be taken politically for this lobbying group to allocate resources. So say there's going to be a new initiative in California, I could actually write up an initiative on this DAO, and with my token holdings, present it to the DAO there, and all the other token holders, if they think that's a good proposal, they can vote with their money on that proposal. Then they will hire lobbying firms to using the tokens voted. They'll hire a lobbying firm to then go promote that proposal. But that's all, in one sense, that's not centralized. That's not a traditional organization, and that's how a lot of cryptocurrency projects now are kind of evolving into, where there's a developer team that produces the product, but they don't actually, there's no CEO in a sense.
Mhm.
And
Well,
so
it's decentralized, as you say.
yeah, exactly. So that's how the framework is. The regulators they're not even there yet. They can't even decide if it's a security or a utility or whatnot. But the industry is already moving there in terms of tokens. I'll say a lot of the new stuff I'm seeing, they're creating SPVs in Singapore, foreign countries. So American companies, instead of founding in America, because there's not too many regulations, there's actually not enough clarity and they don't want to go to jail. If they're going to create a centralized company, they'll use Singapore or other options, and then they'll use SPV holding company that then gets listed on the US either via their token on an exchange or on the stock market or a Canadian stock market exchange, just because there's not enough clarity that innovation is actually already leaving the US. As far as NFTs go, I think it is a seriously undervalued market right now. And not in the sense of like, okay, the digital picture is cool. Yeah, I think that's overvalued, hyperinflated. But in terms of assets in the economy being able to exist online and have the idea of having digital ownership of something, not just some money, the idea of digital ownership is going to, I think, radically change the environments in the future. And so NFTs, I think, are, especially with like metaverses and things of that nature, are seriously undervalued, which is why the land sales going on in the NFTs right now are tremendous and have explosive growth. And people can write into a smart contract for, let's have a conversation earlier, for real estate. So instead of needing a title company, escrow holding company, real estate agent, and broker, you could just create like a metaverse of an MLS listing and write into a smart contract and just buy a piece of property right then and there, title exchange to you, money sent to there, process done in 30 minutes instead of 90 days. So in terms of NFTs, I think that whole area, digital ownership, is just beginning to be explored.
James,
Wow.
once upon a time, it was Switzerland which was the center of whole thing. Is it still the same situation?
No. Switzerland, I mean, I would say no. I'd say there's a lot going on in Puerto Rico if they want to stay. For a lot of Americans that have done well in crypto, a lot of ones that want to have their businesses, a lot of them have moved to Puerto Rico because it's still technically in the US. They get a gigantic amount of tax breaks and they can run their businesses there. Singapore is becoming another hub due to regulatory framework there. Switzerland, there is stuff going on in Switzerland, absolutely. From what I've seen, a lot of it though is tokenizing private equity, and that they don't really, a lot of them because of US laws and regulations and whose equity they have in those Swiss bank accounts, that, to say the least, care about privacy, not to mention possible nefarious activities. They're actually not doing anything really with American markets. So Switzerland still has activity, but in terms of like real innovations, growth potentials, whatnot, most of that's still in the US and starting for tax purposes, Puerto Rico and Singapore and things of that nature.
Yeah, don't forget El Salvador.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, they're that's becoming a big space there, and Actually, there is a concerted effort within the cryptocurrency community actually to invest heavily in Latin America, because it's a great example for use cases of crypto, and because most of those countries have some form of hyperinflation or political instability. Just the original use case of crypto has value there, and so it's been growing tremendously.
Fascinating. Wonderful.
Yeah, so I'd kind of start to transition to writing just more, research, but opinion-based articles just on what's happening in the industry and different updates. Another big development is telecommunications. That whole industry, they don't know it yet, but they're about to get flipped upside down. There's an interesting one called Helium. I don't know if you guys have heard, but they already have a few 100 million users around the world. But effectively, they crowdsource the infrastructure for telecommunications, and then they use a blockchain token to secure it. And those that provide the infrastructure get rewarded for providing the infrastructure and for those using it on their network. And then if you want to use it, all you have to do is own the currency, convert it to a data credit, and now you get internet access anywhere where someone effectively is providing a hotspot. And they're already growing into 5G and moving pretty quickly, and have a partnership actually with Dish Network, who will be providing more hotspots on all of their dishes. So I know a few months ago, you guys have been talking about Belt and Road Initiative and where 5G is coming in telecommunications, but this is a new innovation that will effectively crowdsource the infrastructure and place the cost of all of that issues, as well as high density with 5G. In one sense on the consumer, but they'll also be rewarded in that cryptocurrency for helping propagate the network.
But are you talking about the services side of the industry or the equipment side of the industry? Because it seems to me what you're describing is providing service, and that in fact, if I'm understanding what you're talking about, that the equipment providers actually, this would be a boon for them, no?
Yes. So the company is actually making money on the equipment. So they're selling you, they have like a low RAN signal that's effectively some form of 4G, and then they're also going to be producing 5G machines coming out in January of this, starting in January of this year, but really this summer is when you'll start to see about 20,000 orders come through. So still small, but growing rapidly. They're making money on the machines, on the actual hardware. But once essentially people have paid for the hardware, you're going to earn rewards from helping propagate the blockchain network and providing cellular coverage in the form of your hotspot connected to a network.
Okay. But that's all Wi-Fi, right? So, I mean, I think what you're describing is so if we're talking hotspots and the type of connections you're talking about, this is a Wi-Fi network. No, I mean, it's so, and not to put too fine a point on it, but how are they going to ensure the same quality of service that a bona fide service provider would offer, and would an enterprise be willing to take advantage of such a service given their requirements? And not to go too far with it, but I mean, this is where the money is made in the telecom industry, is from enterprise, not from consumers. In fact, a lot of them are loss leaders and are subsidized by governments, investment in that part of the industry. So I mean, will it really have that big of an impact on service provider revenue, or especially profitability? I wonder about that. Anyway, I don't mean to divert the discussion. I was just sort of curious about.
No, those are great points. I can send you a link to one project already that's doing Helium, but there's also some other ones that are following and doing their own things. But you're right in terms of like network coverage, but if you look at it, there's a map that shows the LA coverage, and the entire LA area everywhere is covered. And so as you're, in one sense, Wi-Fi, you'd be roaming just like a normal cellular service. The network is going to essentially keep moving you onto the best signal in that area, so that you get overlaid with the best signal, the best coverage, while everyone around that's providing the signal, they're getting a little bit of your data credits for the amount of data you're using. And then in one sense, it's also randomized, so it can't be predicted and hacked and try to have forced entry onto the network. But currently, if you go in LA, there's full coverage. So, and then the cost is, in one sense, the company, they make money on the hardware. They're not making money on the network coverage. It's the person that actually provides that network, that has that little beacon in their window. They're getting rewards from that coverage. And so in one sense, they don't need the enterprise grade levels to make money. They don't need it helps solve like rural coverage versus urban coverage, because if someone runs it in a rural area, they're still going to get rewards from helping secure the blockchain as a node. So they're still going to get a fiscal reward just for being out in the middle of nowhere. And then if someone does come by and they'll be able to hook up to the network, they'll also earn rewards that way as well. But effectively, the profits are distributed amongst those that actually provide the service, not the company that actually came up with the idea.
James, what are you
Great,
going
thanks.
Are you going to write a white paper or an op-ed?
Op-ed on all of these.
That'd be great. That would be great.
Yeah, I would have rather if you could have write a white paper, because you have done awful lot of research and that establishes you as, authority in the field, rather than writing an op-ed, which there is plenty of it. So have you considered that?
I had I'd say the research paper I had been working on, granted I slowed down and it kind of was put on the back burner. I think the industry is also moving very quickly. So trying to stay current and not have your article outdated is another aspect as well, which is, I think op-ed, there's less of a research requirement, despite having a good amount. And so I might be able to produce more content in a shorter period of time, which is why I've been leaning more towards op-ed as opposed to a white paper, which would be a bit more research intensive and take more time.
Okay.
Not that I'm opposed to it, but
Right.
these are just some projects, and I have a lot more I actually want to get in and distribute about.
Okay.
Yes.
So Puran, kindly introduce us to another organization. Puran, would you like to talk about that organization so everybody knows what is happening? I haven't had time still to communicate because I just received your email, but maybe you want to tell everybody about that as well.
Certainly, Pari. This organization is called, or is known as Center for Economic Diplomacy. It is located in Croatia, which is in Europe. And the person who is presiding over it is a professor of economic sciences. And he also sits on the Croatian Central Bank Advisory Board. And I was hearing, about this crypto and all that. So we also need to really find out people who could really try and help us with regard to seeing the kind of the light at the end of the day. So this man is a very interesting person. So as I said, he's a professor of banking and economic sciences in the University of Zagreb, Croatia. Plus, he also presides over this think tank, which has been doing a pretty good job because he is doing it in several ways. One, that he has been doing it on his own because he's a professor, he has the students, he has scholars, and he has a university where he teaches. Plus, he has got 5-6 leading think tanks from Europe, which are also partnering with the Center for Economic Diplomacy. So I think, this diplomacy organization, given what they've been doing a lot of research, they've been doing a lot of consulting, advisory services, and then they have been working quite a lot in the realm of banking and physical policies, both for Europe and also internationally. I have known Daniel pretty well because we have been friends, and he also keeps on traveling to India. not of course until, from the time when we had the COVID, but he travels to India. He also does quite a bit of consulting for a few think tanks in India. So I thought having him on board will really help us in three ways, at least. One, that we will have our footprint pretty quickly in Europe and with him, and then with all his partners who are from different parts of Europe. So we will be killing probably two birds with one single stone, one. Secondly, whenever we were to do maybe a Zoom meeting or maybe some topic to take up, he will have plenty of faculty members, plenty of students to come and attend. Because it's not happen that we run a Zoom meeting and we have a very, small number of people attending on to it. So I thought that would be another pretty good idea. And finally, since he also operates with quite a few think tanks in India, we could also have, that kind of a collaboration getting leveraged in favor of the forum. So I thought he could be a pretty good person who could really help us establish our footprint in Europe through his think tank, which he has been presiding over, his University of Zagreb in Croatia, and then finally, with quite a few partners that he has who have been working and supporting him, both on the university side and also on the side of his think tank. So I thought, starting with Daniel would be a pretty good idea. And then he also has quite a few connections in Africa. Of course, I'll be connecting the forum with quite a few people in Africa and elsewhere in Asia as well. But I think once we have one person good on our side, then we can probably flip it through pretty fast. So he's a pretty nice person, and I think it'd be worth it to explore the possibility, and he'll be pretty open because I know him, I know the forum, so I can probably say that we can have quite a few good things.
Very much. Yeah, I will be contacting him.
Yeah.
Greg, any comments?
No, it sounds good. Thanks, Puran, for reaching out. It does sound like a promising contact.
Yeah. And I think finally, Greg has been very busy, several papers, appearances. So maybe, Greg, you want to mention a few points?
Well, I've been doing a couple of presentations on sort of thinking about the future and the world, how to think about it. I did one for the Rand Corporation Graduate School, and I was at the World Affairs Council of Orange County. This afternoon, I'm doing something on intelligence. The open part of South Korean intelligence, it's called the Institute for National Security Studies, has had a couple of what they call global intelligence summits. The last couple have been virtual. This will be virtual, but I'll speak at it this afternoon. So I've kind of, and then I've been doing some commentary on the Biden administration. I just did a piece which I sent off to the LA Times that really grew out of several of these presentations I was doing. So I thought I'd write it up.
So on that note, any comments from anybody? No?
I can chip in, Pari, because, as we talked last time, I've been able to speak to a career diplomat from India, and I'll be happy to share with you his short bio profile. He retired as India's High Commissioner to Mauritius, but he has spent a lot of time in US and Europe and Latin America. So if you were to consider doing anything, he'll be happy to chip in and support us.
Of course, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you. So I think on that note, I want to thank you everybody for being here. Wish you all a wonderful week ahead and see you next week. Thank you.
A good week, everybody. Great to see you, James.
Yeah.
Long time.
It's been a minute.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.